Today we're going to continue the development of our World Cup website by listing all the groups and their standings. Before that, it will be nice to make an improvement to the live score section. As you can see, currently there are no matches being played. So it will be nice if we have a message that tells this to the users so they don't feel like the website is not working. So let's fix this. We are just going to check if there are any matches. And if there are any matches, we're going to display the table. Otherwise, we're going to display a message. We can nicely style the message by using Bootstrap again and their alerts section. I think this is a pretty good info box, so I can just copy this one and set the info message to there are no matches currently being played. There we go. Now when we refresh the page, we can see our error message. Many competitions have groups in their group stage, so today we're going to display all the groups and their standings. There are several ways of doing that, and I'm going to show you all of them. First, we would like to make our container take the whole space, so that we have more space for the groups, and we're going to put the groups on the left side while keeping the live scores on the right side. I'm going to fit in the groups here. So I have added these nice headings, and now let's list all the groups. There are two ways in listing all the groups and their standings, and we're going to show both of them. The first one is getting all the standings of all the groups together, and the second one is getting the standings of each group individually. Going to our standings documentation page, we can find the parameter competition ID that we're going to use again. And we already have a method in our live score API class, so we can just use it to get all the standings. And this class is called getStandings. And we can just copy these parameters here. So what this will do is provide all the standings for all the groups in the competition. Now let's make sure we're using 362, which from the last video we saw is the competition ID for the World Cup. And now let's refresh our page. In this response, we see all the teams from all the groups together. And if we use the pre-tag, we would be able to see the data in a more structured way. So in the response, we can find the group ID, the group name, team name. For this exercise, we're going to list the points and the matches played. Let's first just list all the teams with their points. So let's refresh and see the result. So now we can see position 1, 2, 3, 4. This is group A, they all have 0 points. Group B, 1, 2, 3, 4, all 0 points. So let's now split them into groups. First, we need to keep track of the current group we're working with. So then when we make a new group, we provide a table header and a group name so it looks nicely styled. For this purpose, we're going to have a variable called group ID. I'm going to send it to now, as we don't have a group yet. Then here in the loop, if the current group ID is different than the standing group ID, we need to set the header. We make sure that we keep this in that variable so we don't provide the header for every single row. first column position using the hashtag, second one could be country, third one PTS, and fourth one date, matches, or POD for shorter. Now when we refresh the page, we can see our header before each group, but which group is this one we don't know. So for that purpose we can take the table, put it inside here, so we can start the table here, and of course we need to end the table. In order to end the table, if we have had the group beforehand, we can echo the ending of the table so we don't break the HTML. And we need the assignment to happen after this check. And before the table, we can provide a nice header. Let's call it H4. That's going to be group, and then we can use the group name. Refresh. So now everything is fine. All the groups are separated. Group A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H at the end. And let's just change the color of this so it looks nicely styled. We can take a table. Info looks good, so let's take info, put it on the TR, and there we go. Groups A, B, C, D, E, G, H. Also, the top two teams qualify for the next stage, so let's make them green. Come here, and if the rank is less than 3, the team is qualifying, then we can put the success or green row, which is the success one, so we just take this and echo it here. Now we refresh. So now teams 1 and 2 from each group are marked as green, which means they will qualify for the knockout stage. We want to make sure that the website works very well with different competitions, so let's go back to our config file and change the competition ID to the Champions League. So we're going to see the standings from last year's Champions League. You can see Manchester City, PSG, Salzburg, Club Brugge. The cool thing about this way of working with the groups is that it will work with any competition, even in the Premier League. Of course, 1 and 2 could be different here because top 3 teams qualify for Champions League, 4, 5, 6 and so on, they go for the Europa League, and the last 3 they're relegated. There is a second way for getting the standings of all the groups in a competition. It's much easier to implement for us than the current implementation, but it means that we're going to send more requests to the servers. Luckily we're caching the responses from the server, so that should not affect much our quota. So for testing purposes, I'm going to comment out this section here. And we're going to get all the groups in the competition. So here in our documentation you can find the endpoint for competition groups. But you don't need to do that, as we already have a method that will do this for you. So we can just call the groups. And again we need to provide the competition ID. We're going to dump the result just so we know it's working. And it's working. We no longer see the groups because I commented out this section. We can create a new variable called individual group standings. That's going to be an array. And then you can loop over each group and get the standings for it. So individual group standings, we will provide the same standings as here, but we're going to provide an additional parameter to specify only the group that we want the standings for. So if we go to our documentation and the standings, you will see that we have an additional parameter called group ID, which we can use. And that group ID will come from this data, which is this ID. So now, if we dump the individual groups, we should see the standings grouped again. In that case, we sent 1 and then 8 more requests. So this is like 10 requests, 1 for the live scores, 1 for the standings, and 1 for the group. As I said, luckily we are caching them, so this will spare our quota. Now if we want to make our work even easier, we can put this into an array and call it standings. And then we can provide some additional data about the group. So here we can provide the group name, which is going to be group. And later we're going to need the group ID for links to other pages. Now if we use the pre-type again, so we see better the result, we can see group name, group ID, and then the standings for the group. Let's put our configuration back to the World Cup. And now looping over the groups is going to be much easier than what we observe here in the first method. So again, we're going to do a for each. Now we don't need to keep track of the current group, as we have the group information inside the array. So we can copy this section here. I don't need to keep track of the table closing as well. So now when we refresh, we should see all the headings, group A with the headings. Then we will need another for each inside. As you can see, this was super fast, as we have cached everything and we have exactly the same look, but our code is much cleaner. The trade-off is the number of requests we send to the server. Thank you, and subscribe to our channel so you can get updates when we publish new videos.